accident, what happened on a local race. I think on my opinion, it could have been. We could all do things better. But when I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but when a local promoter wants to do something different, sometimes the event is bigger than what they can, and they can. It's a bigger task. To us, it's always hard, and sometimes, I mean, we could do things better. But for a local promoter to cover all those access roads, it's just a huge logistical nightmare that it takes us a whole year to do 4 races, and you have to plan and have meetings, and it's still something's going to happen. Someone's going to mess, and a drunk guy is going to go backwards on the course. It's impossible, really, and I'll say it straight up. It's impossible to guarantee 100% that that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
No matter where. If you're racing in the desert and it's not in an enclosed area, you can't guarantee that it's not going to happen. But we always try to do a better job.
Yeah, and I think it's worthy of saying that like you said, there's no throwing any local sanctioning bodies under the buses here. There's no throwing throwing anybody under the bus. And I'll go even one step further and say what makes the sport that we love so cool is that it is still pretty wild. Those things can happen, yes. And if we were able to find a way to stop those things from happening, then it would stop being what it is. And anybody that is entering an off-road race, whether it be in the United States or in Mexico or in Morocco or anywhere else around the world, they are aware of the risks, and
yes.
They wouldn't be doing it if the risks weren't there, because it wouldn't be as fun.
No,
let's just face it.
No, I know. It's and there's no way. There's try to educate people, and on our end, we try to cover as much ground as possible. But there's always going to be that that access road we didn't cover, or that rancher that decided to go and go to town, and he forgot there was a race going on.
Yeah.
But anyway, it is impossible to guarantee it 100%. But what happened to Armando was really bad, and we're all happy that he's doing better.
Yeah.
That's why we always try to do things different and see if it works and things like. It's like when we started starting the bikes in the dark. Most of the bikers were against it, but on our end we thought, well, where do you typically have accidents with spectators or with locals or? Well, it's the first 100 miles. Always, if something's gonna happen, 90% of the time is in the first 100 miles, because you're fresh, you've just started, you're all amped up. There's a whole bunch of reasons why the first 100 miles are crucial. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and I also think, continue on.
Okay, and then we had the idea, well, if we start them at in the dark, first of all, if there's someone coming, you see their lights.
Yep.
So that's a real good warning, and you see the racer's lights also.
Yep.
Normally, spectators go in and try to go in the morning, and they're doing what they're not supposed to do, getting on the race course. They just bought a bunch of beer, and so they're not drinking yet.
Yeah.
So when you start them at night or like 4 or 5 in the morning or earlier, there's no spectators. Very rarely you see a spectator that early. They're drinking coffee. They're there. They're not drunk. So
yeah, right.
when we started doing that, and when we just do it when we have to do it, we haven't had any accidents.
Yeah. No, and I think that's a testament to looking at, like you said earlier, listening and being open to new ideas and not being stuck in old ways and constantly trying to evolve. And I think that, speaking from the perspective of an enthusiast, a racer, also somebody, a person who's involved in it now at a industry level, the efforts to improve and think outside the box, all of those things are evident to those of us in the industry and those of us that have been around for a while. So kudos to you, Jose and Roger, because there's definitely there is tangible evidence, tangible proof of the efforts that are being made, and the level of professionalism is increasing. The level of safety is increasing, and I think that overall, just the presence. I mean, I'll be blunt. I think the fact that there's a Mexican national that is the president of a sanctioning body that puts on races in Mexico, I think that is appropriate, and I think it should be that way. So at all levels, I think things are getting better, and that's not to say that they were bad before when the prior owner owned it. I mean, you got to hand it to the guy for building what he built over 38 years, if it was whatever it was.
Totally, yeah.
And we're referring to Sal Fish, who has also been on this podcast with Jim Riley as the host. So, well, let's. We're kind of getting close to the 1 hour time point here, and I promise you, I wouldn't drag you on beyond that. We've talked about quite a few different things. You do have a race coming up here in a couple of weeks. What's the dates?
It's from the 18th to the 22nd.
Okay, that's right, because it's the 18th is 2 days after Mexican Independence Day, right?
Correct.
And my birthday's on that day, September 16th. And it's a new race. Let's talk about, I mean, back in the 90s when I was racing in the Score Series, when Score and HDRA had merged, it was an 8-race series with races in the United States and in Mexico. Variety of things over the course of a couple decades took place, and the number of events that were being put on by Score has gone up and gone down. There's been a few years, I believe, when there was 4 or 5 Score races since Roger has been the owner, and I believe there was a year when there was only 3. But now we're back to 4 with a brand new race that is a 400-mile race. Tell us a little bit about how we got to this point and what we should be expecting moving forward. And we can't ignore the obvious that there is a new sponsor and a new hotel that I visited for the first time, I don't know, one of the events here in the last year, and was just blown away by the Lucerna Hotel. What an amazing place.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
There are our sponsor for this year. We don't know if they're going to be in for next year, but anyway, the race will go on, and it'll be one of our main events. Well, the whole idea is if you look at we were doing 4 races. We were doing the Desert Challenge, which I think some people liked it. To me, it was a huge challenge to put on that race, and you have to think like what we are. We're also racers, and you have to think about if there's people that come from far away. Okay, I don't think they liked to come and race 2 days and race 100 miles. And
so we're just getting warmed up in off-road racing 100 miles. That's like
exactly
barely getting started.
It's not, to me, it's the Desert Challenge went back from Laughlin. I mean, it went back from the old days, and we were continuing with that tradition. But to me, that was not Baja. That was not what Score racers wanted.
It actually, I believe, in all honesty, it goes all the way back to Riverside.
Yeah.
And Riverside, when they did you ever go to Riverside?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I did.
So that, I mean, obviously you've heard of it and have seen pictures or videos of it. But when Riverside got demolished, they built houses, I believe. Sal moved around a few times. We had a similar style race in Phoenix a couple of times at Phoenix International Raceway. I'm trying to remember where the other one was, but that they called that the Desert Challenge. So it stems from that. And yes, you're right. It was Laughlin. And then, like you said, you went and there was a race in Rosarito and then Tijuana, or vice versa.
Yeah, twice. Yeah, first in Rosarito when we brought it because we did it in Imperial Valley. When we brought everything down to Mexico, the first Desert Challenge was in Rosarito, which was it was good. It was we worked on with what we had, and I think we did a great job. Then we did it 2 years in a row in Tijuana, but still, the numbers speak by themselves.
Sure.
I mean, we have 300 entries for the 1,000 or more, and then we had 120 entries for the Desert Challenge. It's telling you something.
Yeah.
It definitely you have to see all that and understand why you have those numbers. And the way I thought about it was that. We had the Desert Challenge, we had San Felipe, we had the Baja 500, the Desert Challenge, and the 1,000.
why was the 500 and the 1,000? I mean, the numbers. Why were they bigger than the other two races? Well, I understand the Baja 1,000 and the 500. I mean, they're like main events. And if we only have 4 events, we only do 4 races a year, and that's the goal. That's where we want to stay. Why not make those 4 races main events? That was the whole idea of it. So I know some racers didn't like the fact that we're not qualifying, and then we're making the San Felipe 250 a qualifying event. We can talk a lot about that, but I think it worked.
Yeah.
It got the numbers up, and we were losing entries when they were having accidents and qualifying. It's one thing I've learned in all these years, that you can never have everyone happy. So you're going to do something good, and some people are going to hate it, some people are going to like it, but anyway, you will not, and I stopped not caring, but I know that I'm not going to have everyone happy. But anyway, okay, so make that a qualifying event and make it bigger. So yeah, it's going to be called San Felipe 250, but it's over 300 miles now. It's 350 miles now. So, and the numbers went up.
Yep.
It worked. So the idea of, I know a lot of people didn't like the Desert Challenge, so let's make another race. Not a really big one, because we have the main event, the Baja 1000, coming. So why not a 400-mile race, and make it as fun as possible? And once you see the map, it's a lot of what we've been doing, because even though people say, well, there's a bunch of trails in Baja. Yeah, but they're not available. We can't
let's talk about that for a second, Jose,
Sure.
because I have a relationship with you that goes back to, I can remember going to the Ballena Road outside of Mulegé, and working with the landowners and the ranchers there to be able to use that road for wide open trips, the off-road adventure excursion company that you and I both worked for.
Yeah.
And man, I can't tell you how important it is that I think you're involved with this, because I got to work right alongside of you, coming up with solutions and ways to create win-win situations for the landowners and the businesses. And let's face it, I'll tell you a quick story, and this is a funny little rabbit hole. So I lived in Cabo for a decade, and I ran the southern division of the company we worked for, and yeah, there were issues with routes that we took that landowners didn't want us to be on, and it was a constant, I don't want to say struggle, but it was the reality of the business that we owned, and some people didn't like it, and we had to find ways to create win-win scenarios. But here's the funny part. So I'm in my kitchen one morning on Gringo Hill in San Jose del Cabo, and I think you've been to my house down there, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Dirt roads throughout the neighborhood. And I'm looking out my window of the kitchen, rinsing out my coffee cup or something, and I see a whole train of quads come up through my neighborhood. And it's one of the local quad companies, was basically guiding a tour through my neighborhood. And I dropped my coffee cup in the sink and went running outside to go yell at whoever this tour guide was leading this tour of quads through my neighborhood. And when I got halfway out the driveway, I stopped dead in my tracks, and I was like, wait a minute.
You were that rancher closing the door wide open.
And it really kind of it gave me a different perspective. Here I was in my own neighborhood, and some jerk was bringing a bunch of yahoos through my neighborhood, making dust, making sound. It was early in the morning. And so it really opened my eyes to realize, okay, that's how a lot of people feel when we come through their property. So you are a perfect guy, Jose, to be brokering and that's the wrong word because it makes it sound so bureaucratic, but
negotiator.
The negotiator. And even that, though, you as a guy who self-admittedly is more of a cowboy than a racer, or more passionate about cows than racing. The connection to the land, the understanding of what's important to ranchers, but also as a chollero who can't help but be in love with off-road racing, bridging the gap between those two. I can't think of a better person to do it. So
yeah, thank you. It's all about respect and knowing where you can and where you can't.
There's proper ways to do things in Mexico.
Yeah,
and I've brought this topic up on the podcast in episodes past, and that's that so much of the time there's this mentality of, oh, I love Baja because it's like the Wild West.